Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Amelia and we are sort of approaching / in the time of year where a lot of people start looking forward to the new year and like preparing for it. And for those of us that keep reading journals, that means that we are probably starting to think a lot about how we want our journal to be set up for the next year, whether that's the theme or all of the different like spreads that we're thinking about including. So I thought for today's video that I would go over a bunch of different ideas for spreads that you might want to include in the yearly section of your reading journal. So of course we are starting off with a title page because, you know, and what else are you going to start with? So if you're setting up a new reading journal, the title page is going to depend on whether or not you're planning to set it up for year at a time or just like general reading journal, and like you put all the years in one journal, of course. And really the only difference is just like, are you including the year or not? And if you are not, maybe you are making sub like title pages within your reading journal for the individual years. And so I'm just setting up a relatively simple title page here, or at least the plan was to just make something that was pretty simple, but I ended up getting a little bit carried away with like some fun medieval style lettering, as well as this like border image that I found on Pinterest. I didn't come up with it myself, I'll be honest there. But yeah, it's totally up to you what kind of theme you might want to do. And I'm just going to show in a second a few other title page themes. These are just from my bullet journals over the years, as well as this year's reading journal. So just to kind of show you that you can kind of do whatever theme sparks your imagination, I guess. It's really up to the person, and I love that about making your own reading journal, is that you can make it really customized. So the next sort of major page that I feel like most people are gonna want to have in their reading journal is somewhere to write down the books that they're thinking about reading, also known as the TBR, or to be read. So for the one that I am drawing out in this video, I decided to go with a really kind of popular setup. Now this sort of bookshelf sort of setup theme, I don't know what you want to call it, it can be used for a variety of purposes, really. Here I'm using it for a TBR page where you would write in the spines all of the books that you are hoping to read in that year, or maybe you'll leave some space open to expand on, and then as you read that book, you would color the spine of the book in to indicate that it has actually been read. But you could also use it as like a books read page where you leave all the spines blank, and then as you read books, you would then write in the title of the book on the spine and color it in or not as you would, you know. That is the, as I was saying, great part about custom reading journals and bullet journals is you can make them to your own standards exactly as you want. So just drawing a bunch of rectangles for books in like different positions to mix it up, make it more interesting to look at, and then adding some little knickknacks to the shelves, some plants, you know, whatever represents your shelves and your reading, and that's what you can go ahead and draw on in there. And then now I'm just doing another variation on TBR. This one's in a list format, but divided up by genre so that you can sort your TBR a little bit. Of course, if you have some other way you like to divide the books you're reading, you could do that too, but just doing a main header and then subheaders for each genre that we're going to include on this list. And then for my own last year, I just did like a really simple like bulleted list, nothing fancy at all, so lots of options there. And then we're moving on to a unique kind of spread. I've seen a similar thing in bullet journaling. Specifically, I think it was Jashi Curran does like the 23s in like 2023 or whatever. So we're doing like a simplified version of that for books. So this one is obviously going to be 24 books in 2024, and then as the years go on, it does get a little bit unmanageable, I guess. I'm not really particularly worried about that because, you know, who knows what we'll be doing in 10 years time. It seems crazy that 10 years will be 2034, but I'm just setting up a large title here in a kind of stylized font. And then the way that I'm going to represent the books in this spread is by using like printed images of the covers, which is a pretty popular thing to do for like books read spreads and stuff, and I will show you that a little bit later. But yeah, just print books out at whatever kind of size you feel like suits your journal. I usually just kind of, I think it's 4x6 or 3x6 dot grid spaces. It's gonna depend on the size of your journal, so just like figure out what you think looks good. All right, next up is another spread that is heavily inspired from bullet journaling. It is like the 365 days of spread. It's also like a year in pixels, I believe that it's often called. And the idea is pretty simple here. You're drawing out a grid with one box for every single day of the year. And then for a 365 days of a reading version, you're gonna fill in one box for each day that you read. And then so at the end of the year, you're gonna end up with a grid that kind of gives you a visual of what your reading looks like that year, how many days you read versus didn't. And it could just be like I don't know, I just think it's fun, you know, to have a really visual way to see that, because I like to track the days that I read. So yeah, if you are also interested in tracking the days that you read, you might want to try this one out. I'm just filling it in with alternating colors to add a little bit more visual interest. Then we are moving on to the books read section. So I feel like this is another one of those like big ones that people very often want to include. They want to track the number of books that they read. And so the first version that we are doing here is just like a pretty simple, we got like a banner, a title. Titles are always good. And then we're just going to use a series of boxes to track the number of books that were read. So I'm doing just 2x2 boxes, but depending on the amount of books that you typically read in a year, you can make them smaller, you can make them bigger. You do you, it's your reading journal. And then so obviously this one's pretty simple in terms of like how you're meant to fill it in. I'm just going to, in a moment, write the number like of like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you know what I mean? And then as you read each book, you would fill in another square. And I do think it's pretty like satisfying to look at the end of the year. But personally, I like to track the book that I read, like the books that I read in the order that I read them. But if that's not something that you're interested in, or you don't really care about that specifically, then this one might be a great one for you. It's really easy to set up, it's really easy to use, and yeah, I do think it looks nice when you fill it in. And then we're doing another books read spread, just some more variation as with the TBR. This one is even more simple to set up. It's just going to be, I've got a big title going on. As I said, titles, they're helpful. And then this is just going to be a really simple, like, not chart, what's the word? Table, that's the word. So we've got a category for, not a category, a column for the number of the book that you read, the title, author. I also included pages and stars. It's up to you if you want to have some different information in that category. But yeah, you just fill the books in as you read them. And this is my books read spreads for the year. I went with the printed book layout. All right, then we are jumping into another spread category. So this is the book bracket. I first saw this on Plant-Based Bride's channel. She does like a full like 2-page layout, but I'm going to show you just like a variation that you can fit on just one page. So if you don't want to spend 2 whole pages in your journal on it, you can just tip your book sideways and then it will fit in quite nicely. All right, so the next sort of spread idea that you might want to include in your journal is a upcoming releases calendar tracker thing. This is pretty similar to the future log that you see in a lot of people's bullet journal, where we're gonna draw out some mini calendars, one for each month of the year. For this example, I just did 6 months because I didn't feel like writing tiny numbers for 12 months for just this. But yeah, I'm doing calendars, adding in all the dates. I didn't bother with labeling the weekdays because I didn't think it really mattered for this. And then in order to use it, you would just do like a little dot on the date that the book is coming out, and then bring it down below it and write the name of the book. Sometimes you might want to write the number down there as well. But then we're moving on to series trackers. So the one that I'm showing you here is slightly adapted from, I saw someone's like movie TV series tracker, like for watching like tracking like the episodes you've watched and stuff. So I've modified it to suit books better. So you're just gonna draw a square for each book in the series. Again, I'm using 2x2 squares, I think. Apparently I just love a good 2x2 square. And then I have a little book icon, just for fun. And then a line for the series name and the author name. And yeah, so it works pretty simply. Again, none of these spreads are complicated. You're just gonna write the series name on the series line, the author name on the author line, and then fill in a box as you read the books in the series. And then of course, we're just adding a little title, and I'm showing you sort of how to use it. Yeah, just fill in the books as far as you've gotten. It's pretty simple. And then just adding some little more decoration, because why not? It's always fun to enhance the trackers and stuff that you're using with personality, decoration. It doesn't have to be really complicated. Like, I'm just using some squiggles here. Here's my series tracker from the year, really similar but slightly more simple. All right, then we're getting into something a little bit different. I don't think I've seen this in anybody's bullet journal, reading journal before, but I have seen a lot of people doing videos with like a TBR like board game essentially. And so I thought, you could just put that straight into your reading journal, and it would be easy to flip back at any time during the year, and you don't have to worry about storing a board game somewhere, because it is just neatly kept with your reading journal and all of your other sort of like reading, I don't know what to call it. Anyway, I'm going for like a kind of just Monopoly style here. We got squares going around the edge. I'm gonna write go, and then just sort of decorating with different colors. I went for a rainbow because why not? And then I'm just gonna write different prompts in each of the squares. I didn't go like super in depth of figuring out rules for this one, because it's just a demonstration, but do it however you like. I just thought it would be a fun option to include in your reading journal. But we are just about at the end of all the ideas now, so I hope you have enjoyed today's video. Let me know in the comments what spreads you're planning to include in your reading journal for the new year. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.